It's been a good week, hasn't it? If you're a Chelsea fan, of course, it looks like Timo Werner will be heading to Stamford Bridge, and that coupled with that big signing of Hakim Ziyech, who will join for the start of the next season as well. A lot of positive buzz around Chelsea and suggestions maybe they're not even done yet. Gab Marcotti still with us. Steve Nicol joins the show as well. Gab, what happened here? Because obviously with that transfer ban, they were pushing youth, but that still seemed to be the rhetoric, the narrative coming out of Chelsea, despite the lifting of that ban. That seems to have changed over the last couple of weeks.
No, I mean, look, they had little choice but to go and dip into their many youth team products. Jody Morris, who's Frank Lampard's assistant, obviously former youth team coach, knows these guys really well. I think it's more than 10 youth team products who appeared for them this season. And I think a lot of people got a chance to show what they could do. I think a lot of these guys will continue to be a part of it. But equally, it's one thing to be a very, very promising youngster on a successful youth team and to play to a certain level. And I think it's another one to go and be irregular on a team that goes and challenges for the Champions League and the Premier League. And so I don't think everybody's going to make the grade necessarily at Chelsea, but for the time being, all these kids are certainly being kept around. And if anything, you can look at Ziyech as competition for Mason Mount, perhaps. You can look at Timo Werner as an alternative to Abraham or to Hudson-Odoi. But at some point, they obviously have to continue and upgrade.
That's the thing now, isn't it, Stevie, for Frank Lampard, to try and get that balance right, to try and continue to improve these youngsters, but overall, it's about winning, isn't it?
Well, I think he's reached the stage now, particularly with the purse strings being open, that I'm sure the club are more than happy that they're sat in the top four. That would have been a dream for them when Frank took over, considering they weren't probably quite sure what to expect. So now Frank's past the first stage of getting the trust of everybody, the players and the board and certainly the owner. And now that he's going to buy players, from now on it's going to be about winning, because when you spend money, as soon as you start spending money, you're expected to get results. And to get results at Chelsea means winning. So 100% now he has to very quickly bed in the players that he's bringing in. But they still have to win as well.
Gab, how come Chelsea are so ahead of the game, it seems, at the moment?
Well, one thing that they've done really well over the years is obviously they've produced a lot of young players who they've sold or signed foreign players who they could go and get money for. And they've generally sold extremely well. And that is probably what's given them their flexibility in this time. In the case of Werner and Ziyech, they moved very, very early, obviously. We know Peter Cech, all along knew that Timo Werner, that Liverpool were in the driver's seat for Timo Werner, but he kept the conversation going. I mean, he went over most recently in February before the lockdown to talk to him, to try to convince him. If you're asking, why is it that everybody's talking about this huge hit and the uncertainty that they took because of the pandemic? Well, in Chelsea's case, you've got two very high earners like Willian and Pedro, both going out of contract and not being re-signed. That frees up salary money. And I think they've been smart the way they've gone around things. You think of a guy like Tammy Abraham, you need another center forward, but equally you don't want somebody who's going to make Abraham necessarily feel insecure. So what you do is you extend Olivier Giroud for just 1 year, so you have the alternative of the big man. You bring in Werner, who can obviously play center forward if needed, but can also play with Tammy Abraham. They've been very careful, I think, Lampard and Jody Morris have, in terms of nurturing the younger players. Another one is Billy Gilmore, for example, who's a guy Lampard absolutely adores. You've got Jorginho, who plays in his position. Jorginho may leave in the summer if the right offer comes, but equally they like the idea of having Jorginho around for another year and kind of managing the handover from Jorginho to somebody like Gilmore if he's ready. So the combination of those factors, plus the fact that they have an excess of players now, I think in the middle of the park, some of whom, like Ross Barkley, are trying to sell to raise money, it gives them perhaps a level of flexibility that some other teams don't have right now.
Kai Havertz, Gab, we talked about him a couple of days ago. Where do we stand on his possible move to Chelsea?
I mean, I suppose anything's possible, but I would find it very difficult to see how you would now, having signed Ziyech, having Mason Mount there, having signed Werner, now you would add Kai Havertz as well. Now, it's true that people still haven't made up their mind about what position he's going to play when he grows up, in air quotes, obviously. Where do you fit a talent like this in there? But it seems to me that whether at attacking midfield and at center forward, Chelsea are pretty well covered right now in terms of the types of players that they have. So I certainly don't see this being a priority, especially if Bayer Leverkusen are going to try to hold out.
Stevie, Chelsea supporters are excited. Can we start talking about them as title contenders?
Listen, if I'm a Chelsea fan, I should be excited because all this talk is about attack. All the names we're mentioning are all about going forward. That would mean that not only would they have a great starting forward line and a great attacking midfield to go forward and win games, but they have choices. I mean, it's all great going forward. My worry is defensively. Chelsea, what we've seen under Frank Lampard, at their best is when they're going forward. And because of having such a young squad and certainly a young strike force, when they're not quite at it, they've lost goals. So it's fantastic for Chelsea fans to see exciting players being signed, but I think Frank has to, at some point, start thinking about what he's going to do defensively. I think Aspilicueta's still got some more miles left in him. If they sign Chilwell, he's a good defender, but they need a centre-back. I think, Christensen and Zuma haven't done it. I initially liked Christensen, but he hasn't been consistently good. Rudiger is definitely their best centre-back, and he's good, but he's not world class. I think they have to, at some stage, think about that. And you still got the problem with Kepa. Frank clearly either was trying to make a statement with Kepa or he just doesn't fancy him. So if they can sort that out, then obviously that's huge defensively. But Chelsea need to think about what happens when they're not quite at it going forward, because they've shown so far when they're not at it, they lose goals.
Gentlemen, as always, thank you very much. Keep up to date with all the latest news regarding Transfer Talk. Go over to our website and click on, Transfer Talk.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN+.